Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ben's Kitchen, where today I am making cinnamon rolls. As you can see, I got some cinnamon out. I'm not using it yet. That's just more for dramatic effect, I guess. And so the first step is going to be kind of getting this yeast awakened. And so right here I have a 1/4 cup of warm water and a teaspoon of sugar. Into that I'm going to add in 2 and 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And so that's equal to 1 packet. So if you just have packets at home and want to make this recipe, just pour in 1 packet. I really like Fleischmann's. It's the yeast I first got when I started baking, and it has actually never failed me, knock on wood. But other brands are fine. This is just the one that I love. So while the yeast is proofing, kind of getting awakened, I'm going to start the next step, which is scalding some milk. So this is a cup of whole milk. It's almost scalded. Scalded basically happens right before a boil. And so that kind of opens up some of the proteins. It starts to turn some of them into sugar. That's why warm milk tastes sweeter. And in here I have 5 tablespoons of white sugar, 3 tablespoons of shortening, and 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. A lot of recipes use butter. That's fine. Butter's delicious, obviously. I use shortening, and the reason why is because this is the only cinnamon roll recipe I've actually ever made, and it's everyone's favorite that they've had. And so I'm not going to change it. This is actually the first yeast recipe I ever made, ever. And so it kind of holds a special place in my heart. And so I just want to make it how I always make it. So yeah, I'm kind of showing you how. I've been making this for about 8 years now. So that is now scalded, and so I'm going to take it off the heat. Don't want it to come to a rapid boil at all. And so yeah, now I'm just going to take that off, and I'm going to put this over here. And now I'm going to take this milk and pour it in here. And what that's going to achieve is melting that sugar and that salt. Well, you don't really melt salt. And then melting the shortening. So yeah, fun fact, when you do measure sugar in a liquid, you never want to do it by volume, because sugar starts to dissolve in liquid and it will not show you accurate. So if you need like 1/4 cup of sugar and 3/4 cup of water, don't put like 3/4 cup of water and then fill it with sugar until it reaches a cup. You'll have a lot more sugar than you need. Don't really know why I'm telling you with this, because it doesn't really pertain, but now you know. You're welcome. So this is now basically all melted, and as you can see, it's around 125. It's actually warmer than that. Let me give it a stir and show you. It's okay. It's at like 130. I want this to come down to about 110 before I can start on the next steps, because if it's this hot and the yeast meets this liquid, it's very likely that all the yeast would die, and then we wouldn't get a rise out of the dough. We do not want that, so we want to play it careful, and we want this to get down 10 more degrees at least. Yeah, let me just talk about this. It's just an infrared thermometer. Looks really cool. I think it was like 12 bucks. Oh, Sam. That's Sam. That's the dog. He likes laser pointers. And get us on Amazon for about $15. I recommend it if you do anything with like surfaces, so like making pizza at home or grilling. Also get an instant read thermometer. Those are great too if you do a lot of baking or cooking. You can never cook a steak too much if you check its temperature, because then you know. And then you know when to take it off. Yeah. So now this has cooled down. It's around 97 degrees. And so I'm going to, this is the dough hook here, by the way. I'm going to do that and do this and start adding in this flour. And this is 2 cups or 250 grams of flour, all-purpose. Some recipes use bread flour, but I just like all-purpose. I don't want it to be too bready, and I don't want it to be too cakey. So if you want the kind of in-between, all-purpose is the one for you. So yeah, just going to mix all of this in, and I need 2 hands, and so I'll just show you when that's done. So all of that flour is now mixed in. So I'm going to come over here. As you can see, the yeast has bubbled up. That means it's active. Just going to pour all of that in. put that in the sink. Along with 1 egg, and this egg is at room temperature. So I'm gonna do that. Nice one hand crack, left hand too. And now this just gets mixed together. And once that's all combined, I'm gonna add in another 2 cups or 250 grams of all-purpose flour. So the egg and all that is done, and so now I'm just gonna add in maybe like 3/4 of a teaspoon or a teaspoon of vanilla extract. It's not in the recipe, but again, like I've talked about, I like to add vanilla to stuff. It won't make it worse. I mean, come on. And vanilla and cinnamon are actually really, really tasty together. And so now I'm gonna mix this together, and then I'm gonna add in this other 2 cups of flour. And so this will now start to form more of a dough. And fun fact, this is something called an enriched dough, because it has fat and or milk in it. A normal dough just has water, yeast, and flour. So this is called an enriched dough, which actually makes it harder to rise. And the reason it's harder to rise for the dough is because all that fat gets in the way of gluten formation, which is what the yeast use to kind of like balloon out. And it just doesn't quite have that same oomph to it. And that's why there's a lot of times the addition of sugar in enriched doughs. As well as to make them sweeter, obviously, because sugar is tasty. So as you can see, the dough is very wet, and this is actually not how I want it. And so I'm going to start adding in flour a tablespoon at a time, just until it forms a ball that kind of pulls away from the sides and the bottom. And that's what I'm looking for. And once I get there, I'll just knead it for about 5 minutes, and then it should be ready to do its first proofing. So I've now added 5 tablespoons of flour, and it's about there. I don't really want it tacky at all. It can be just a little tacky, but other than that, I don't want any stickiness at all. And so I'm kind of doing it until it gets to that stage. And then once that's done, I'm again gonna just make sure it's proofed or kneaded all the way. And I'll do something called the window pane test, which is where you take a small bit of dough and you stretch it out as thin as you can, and then you hold it up to a light. And if you can see the light coming through that piece, that means that you formed the gluten enough for the yeast to rise. And that actually works for like all kneaded doughs. It's really cool. It's a good way to know if you've kneaded something enough. So yeah, after 5 tablespoons more of flour, so that's 4 cups and 5 tablespoons of flour, it is now the right consistency. And so now I'm just gonna knead it for a little longer. And then I'll just do the window pane test. I'm probably gonna knead it for about 3 minutes longer, and it should be ready by then. So I did the window pane test, and now this dough is done, and so I'm going to just put it in here really quick. Then I'm gonna grease up this bowl, and I'm gonna cover it in this nice bees wrap that I got from Trader Joe's, a little sponsor here. I'm not getting paid though, so it's not really a sponsor. This is just like that bees wrap that you see. And it's reusable plastic wrap, basically. Just don't use it on meats or anything that has bacteria that are bad. And I'm gonna put it in, funnily enough, the bathroom because it's small and the heat is on. And so it's basically like my own little proofing room right now. Don't worry, it's clean in there. And I will basically do it until it's doubled in size, an hour or so. I'll check it after 45 minutes. So there it is. That's the size of it now. You can kind of see. And now I'm going to cover it and put it in the proofing. It has now doubled in size. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out to about the size of this cutting board. It's like 18 by 13. This is a little bit bigger, and that's okay. Actually, it's good that's bigger. And I'm going to flour this first. And I'm going to roll it out. And then I'm basically just going to cover it in butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon. Yum. So that's 1 stick of butter on there. The recipe called for a lot less, but this is how I do it. I think this is one of the things that really sets it apart. Is I add sometimes 2 sticks of butter. I'll probably add 1.5 sticks this time. And then I just pile on the brown sugar and the cinnamon. And what that does is a lot of it will melt out and then form this like toffee crust on the bottom when it cools, which is to die for. You know, a lot of times I talk about balance of flavors and stuff, but when you have cinnamon rolls, you really want a big punch of cinnamon and you want that filling. That's kind of why you eat a cinnamon roll, you know? So, you know, just pile it on. I'll show you when it's all done. basically I'm just going to do a layer of brown sugar, and then I'm going to sprinkle on cinnamon evenly all over it. And then I'm probably going to melt some more butter on top of that. Maybe a half a stick, maybe more. It's going to be so good. So there's that first layer. And yeah, granted, I could stop here if I wanted to, but why? So I'm going to melt some more butter on top of this, add some more brown sugar and more cinnamon, and then I'm going to roll it up and cut it. It's going to be so good. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so now that's done. And I'm going to roll it up and I'm going to cut it into 12 even pieces as best as I can. And I'm going to put it in this pan, which has been buttered or oiled. And then I'm going to let it proof for the second time. And that's kind of where the second secret of how I make cinnamon rolls is. And I'll tell you more about that when I do that. All right, going to roll this bad boy up. So now I'm going to mark this and cut it into 1.5 inch pieces all the way along. And then I'll make 12 of them, roughly. Yay. Look at it. Beautiful. So I've scored it, and now I'm going to cut them and put them in the pan. So here they all are, unbaked and unproofed for the second time. And I'm just going to cover this in a tea towel and put it back in the bathroom on the counter. And I'm going to let it proof for I'm going to check it after about 20 minutes. I'm not going to do it for the full time that it calls for. Because if you do, then they get more cakey. And I like them a little more doughy. So I don't proof it all for the second time. I actually did this by mistake the first time I made them. I just baked them straight from this. And people loved them. And so I'm going to try to emulate that. But I want a little more proofing than that. So I'm going to go and cover this and proof it for like 20 minutes. It calls for 45. So here are the partially proofed rolls, and as you can see, they've really spread out. I'm glad I didn't do it anymore. And so now I'm going to bake these at 375 for about 25 minutes or so. And I may put some foil on top because I don't want them to get too brown. All right, in they go. I'm going to preheat it. I'll check them after 10 minutes just to make sure they're not getting, or 15 minutes just to make sure they're not getting too brown. Here they all are. Don't those look incredible? Yum. And so now these just have to cool, obviously. And then because these are for tomorrow, I'm actually going to make the icing ahead of time, but I'm not going to ice these until tomorrow. So I'll rewarm these up in the oven for the thing tomorrow, and then they will be iced, and yum. So yeah, icing is just going to be a cream cheese icing or frosting, however you want to call it. You can do your own. It's really simple. But yeah, these are the cinnamon rolls. So thank you so much for watching this festive episode of Ben's Kitchen. Happy baking. Here I am making the cream cheese frosting for the cinnamon rolls because I decided I wanted to show you this step. And I won't show you how they go on, but I just thought I should show you how to make it. So in here is 6 ounces, so it's 3/4 of a block of cream cheese and 4 tablespoons of butter. Both were softened to room temperature, and I just beat them together. And then in this is going to go 60 grams, which is a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. I'm going to blend that in with a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla and just a small bit of salt. Yum. So I forgot that I was doubling this, so it actually gets 120 grams of powdered sugar, which is about a cup, and a full teaspoon of vanilla extract. And so now I'm just going to beat this all together, and then once that's fully incorporated, I'm going to add in milk if I need to until it reaches like that temperature that I would like it. And since this isn't going on them until tomorrow, I'm going to chill this and then reheat it in the microwave until it reaches that kind of loose consistency. So yeah, yay. And here are those cinnamon rolls, all wrapped in plastic. Yum. All right, so that is the texture we're looking for. So yeah, this is really good. It's nice and tangy. I love cream cheese frosting or icing, whatever you want to call it, on top of cinnamon rolls. I think that because these are so sweet, they benefit from the tang from the cream cheese frosting. Even if you don't like cream cheese, give this a try. My girlfriend hates cream cheese, but she loves cream cheese frosting. So I highly recommend it. It's my favorite frosting of all time. And yeah, so I guess now officially, thanks for watching this episode of Ben's Kitchen, and happy baking!